Look at this. Just look at it. I'm standing in my front yard, the midday Arizona sun beating down on my neck, holding a piece of paper that weighs more than my cell phone. Have you ever held paper that actually makes you angry? It's not just the words on it, though those are infuriating enough. It's the texture. It's that heavy, eggshell white, watermark-embedded cardstock that screams, "I have too much time, way too much money, and a desperate need to control my neighbors." If you've never been to Sedona, Arizona, let me paint you a picture. You've got these massive, awe-inspiring red rock formations that look like the earth just violently shoved its beautiful, rusty bones into the sky. People come from all over the world to hike, to meditate, to soak up the vortex energy, and to buy overpriced crystals. It's beautiful. It's magical. It is also completely overrun by retired millionaires who treat their neighborhoods like sovereign micronations. I live in a little slice of pseudo-paradise called Red Rock Estates. Now, the word estates is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It's a gated community where the houses are a little too close together, the gravel is aggressively raked, and the Homeowners Association wields more unchecked power than a medieval warlord. And the warlord of our little HOA? A guy named Richard. Richard is the kind of guy who wears a golf visor indoors. He drives a pristine, white, luxury SUV that has never seen a speck of dirt, and I am 99% sure he measures the distance between mailboxes with a laser level. He lives directly next door to me, in a towering, glass-fronted monstrosity of a house that looks like a modern art museum had a baby with an Apple store. I, on the other hand, live in a modest, older ranch-style home that was here long before the mega mansions moved in. And the crown jewels of my property are my junipers. These trees are glorious. They are massive, sprawling, 30-year-old desert sentinels that provide my house with sweet, sweet, life-saving shade during the brutal Arizona summers. They are thick, they are green, and they are mine, or at least they were mine, until this piece of luxury cardstock showed up. I stare down at the citation. The letters are practically embossed. Official notice of HOA violation. Property owner. Jack. Infraction. Obstruction of scenic vista. I crumple the cardstock in my fist. A bead of sweat drips down my temple. I look up, past my beautiful, majestic junipers, and right up to Richard's second-floor balcony. And there he is, standing out there in pastel shorts, sipping something green out of a stainless steel tumbler, staring down at me like I'm a peasant who forgot to pay his grain tax. He gives me a tight, sarcastic little wave. I don't wave back. Instead, I march right up my driveway, cross the invisible property line, and head straight for his custom-built, brushed steel mailbox. He must have seen me coming, because by the time I reach his driveway, he's already jogging down his front steps, his face pinched into a mask of faux concern. "Jack!" Richard calls out, his voice dripping with that manufactured HR department politeness. "I see you got the notice." "I got a ransom note printed on wedding invitation paper, Richard," I say, holding up the crumpled citation. "What is this?" Richard sighs, adjusting his visor. He actually reaches out and taps the paper in my hand. "It's the rules, Jack. We all agreed to them when we moved into Red Rock Estates. Your shrubbery has grown completely out of control. They're junipers, Richard. They're trees. They've been here longer than your house." "Be that as it may," Richard says, clasping his hands behind his back like a disappointing school principal. "They are currently violating Section 4, Paragraph B of the Community Guidelines. They are obstructing the scenic red rock vista from my primary master suite balcony. Your scenic vista? I ask, my voice rising. Richard, you have a panoramic 270-degree view of the entire valley from that balcony. My trees block maybe 3 degrees of a single rock. It's a hazard, Jack, Richard says smoothly. And frankly, it's ruining my feng shui. The energy flow is completely blocked. I stare at him. I literally stare at him for 5 seconds of dead, silent air. Richard, I say slowly, making sure every syllable lands. The only thing ruining your feng shui is your personality. His jaw tightens. The fake smile vanishes. You have 14 days, Jack. The CC&R is very clear. The obstruction must be trimmed down to a maximum height of 15 feet. If it's not done by the 14th, the HOA will begin assessing a fine of $500 per day. Have a blessed afternoon. He turns on his heel and marches back into his glass fortress. I stand there in the heat, the anger bubbling up in my chest like battery acid. $500 a day. They want me to butcher 30 years of natural growth so this guy can see an extra 2 inches of a rock he barely looks at. I storm back into my house, lock the door, and head straight for the kitchen. I pull a cold beer out of the fridge, crack it open, and slam it down on the counter. Then, I go to my home office, dig through my filing cabinet, and pull out the cursed tome itself. The Red Rock Estates Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. The CC&R. It's a massive binder. It's basically the Necronomicon of suburban living. I flip to Section 4, Paragraph B. I read it. Then I read it again. I trace the words with my finger. Any landscaping, including trees, hedges, or shrubbery, that obstructs the designated scenic vista of an adjacent elevated property must be trimmed and maintained. Upon official written notice, the offending landscaping must be reduced to a maximum height of 15 feet from ground level. Compliance must be met within 14 days of notice issuance. I take a long sip of my beer. I read it a third time. My brain starts spinning. I'm looking for the trap door. I'm looking for the loophole. I know how these people operate. They lock you into airtight legal corners until you suffocate. But as I read the paragraph for the 4th time, a slow, sinister, absolutely unhinged smile starts to spread across my face. Wait a minute. I read it out loud to my empty kitchen. Reduced to a maximum height of 15 feet. Compliance met within 14 days. I drop the binder on the counter. I start pacing. I can feel my heart rate spiking. The thrill. The absolute rush of finding a blind spot in a tyrant's armor. The rules are hyper-specific. They dictate the exact height the tree must be. They dictate the exact timeline I have to do it in. But nowhere, absolutely nowhere in this 400-page leather-bound manual of neighborhood oppression does it say a single damn thing about the shape. My junipers are currently about 22 feet tall. They are wide, they are bushy, they have a lot of volume. If I have to reduce them to exactly 15 feet, I have a lot of raw material to work with. I don't just have to give them a buzz cut. I can sculpt them. Oh, Richard, you wanted me to trim my tree? I'm going to trim my tree. I am going to trim it so hard your ancestors will feel it. But I can't do this alone. If I just go out there with a pair of rusty hedge clippers, it's going to look like a lopsided mushroom. No, this requires precision. This requires vision. This requires a professional, not just a landscaper. I need an artist. The next morning, the hunt begins. I skip the corporate landscaping companies. The ones with the fleet of matching green trucks who charge $300 an hour just to look at your grass. They're all on the HOA's payroll anyway. I need a renegade. I need someone who operates outside the system. I spend hours scouring local community boards, weird Craigslist ads, and the bulletin boards at the back of local dive bars. Finally, I find a flyer thumb-tacked to the corkboard at a local coffee shop that smells aggressively of patchouli and roasted beans. The flyer is simple. It's printed on cheap, bright yellow paper. Bear's Botanical Solutions. Tree trimming. Stump removal. Custom topiary. I don't work for HOAs. There's a phone number with a local area code. No website. No polished logo. Perfect. I call the number. A gruff voice answers on the second ring. Bear? Hey, I say. I saw your flyer. I have a job. It's an HOA compliance issue, but... I pause, making sure no one is listening. It's a malicious compliance issue. There is a long pause on the other end of the line. Then, a low rumble of a chuckle. Meet me at the Muddy Mug on Highway 89. 20 minutes. When I walk into the Muddy Mug, it's not hard to spot him. Bear is not. Ironic nickname. He is a mountain of a man, easily 6'5", wearing a plaid flannel shirt with the sleeves ripped off. His arms are covered in intricate, faded tattoos of native flora and fauna. He has a beard that looks like it houses a family of sparrows. And sitting on the table in front of him, next to an enormous iced coffee, is a thick, black sketchbook. I slide into the booth across from him. You Bear? He sizes me up. You the guy with the malicious compliance? I am, I say. My name's Jack. I pull the thick, cream-colored citation out of my pocket and slide it across the table. Bear doesn't even touch it. He just leans over, squints at it, and snorts. Red Rock Estates, Bear rumbles, his voice like grinding stones. I know it. Plastic houses for plastic people. What's the damage? I explain the situation. I tell him about Richard. I tell him about the golf visor, the glass balcony, the scenic vista, and the 22-foot junipers. I tell him about the 14-day deadline and the $500 a day fine. Bear drinks his iced coffee. He looks bored. So you want me to give your trees a flat top? Sounds like regular compliance, Jack. Not my style. No, I say, leaning in closer. I read the CC&R. They mandated the height, 15 feet. They didn't mandate the shape. And my junipers are thick, Bear. They've got a lot of density. Bear slowly lowers his coffee. The boredom vanishes from his eyes, replaced by a dangerous, glittering curiosity. What exactly are you proposing? I take a deep breath. I pull a napkin from the dispenser and grab a pen from my pocket. I quickly sketch out a rough, terrible stick figure drawing of a tree. But the top of the tree isn't round. The side branches are trimmed away. The middle section is left tall, thick, and perfectly straight, standing exactly 15 feet high, flanked on either side by two lower rounded bushes. I slide the napkin across the table. Bear looks down at the napkin. He looks at me. He looks back at the napkin. Suddenly, Bear throws his head back and laughs. It is a booming, wall-shaking laugh that turns the heads of every hipster in the coffee shop. He laughs so hard he actually spits a fine mist of iced coffee onto the table. A middle finger, Bear gasps, wiping a tear from his eye. You want me to sculpt a 15-foot-tall, anatomically correct middle finger pointing directly at the HOA president's balcony? Exactly, I say, a massive grin breaking across my face. Can you do it? Bear stops laughing. His face gets dead serious. He opens his black sketchbook, flips past several pages of incredibly detailed charcoal drawings of oak trees and desert landscapes, and finds a blank page. He pulls a thick graphite pencil from his pocket. "Jack, buddy," Bear says, his pencil flying across the page with shocking speed and precision. "I'm not just going to do it. I'm going to give this tree a cuticle. I'm going to give it knuckles. It will be a botanical masterpiece." "That's exactly what I want to hear," I say. But then Bear stops drawing. He taps the pencil against the table. "Here's the problem, Jack. If I just cut this for you, Richard is going to freak out. The HOA is going to hold an emergency meeting. They will hit you with a nuisance clause or a public obscenity charge, and they will force you to cut the whole tree down to a stump. They have lawyers on retainer just waiting to crush guys like you." My heart sinks a little. He's right. Richard won't just sit there and take it. He'll escalate. "So, what do we do? Just pay the fine?" "Hell no," Bear says softly. He leans in across the table, his massive shoulders blocking out the light. "We don't just cut a tree. We build a fortress. Do you know what VARA is?" "Vera?" I ask, confused. "Is that a type of fertilizer?" Bear smiles. It is a terrifying, brilliant smile. "VARA. The Visual Artists' Rights Act of 1990. It's federal copyright law, Jack." I stare at him. "You're an arborist. Why do you know federal copyright law?" "Because," Bear says, reaching into his back pocket and slapping a worn leather wallet onto the table. He pulls out a laminated card and tosses it to me. "Before I bought my chainsaws, I spent 4 years at the Rhode Island School of Design." I look at the card. It's an alumni ID Master of Fine Arts. Sculpture. Under VARA, Bear explains, his voice dropping into a conspiratorial whisper. An artist holds the moral rights to any work of visual art of recognized stature. It protects the art from intentional distortion, mutilation, or destruction. If someone tries to destroy protected art without the artist's consent, it's a federal violation. Massive damages. My jaw practically hits the floor. I am looking at a heavily tattooed lumberjack who is quoting federal statutes to protect a giant green swear word. "Wait," I say, my brain struggling to catch up. "You're saying—" "I'm saying," Bear interrupts, "that you are not hiring a landscaper to trim your yard. You are formally commissioning a custom, site-specific kinetic topiary sculpture from an artist with a Master of Fine Arts degree. We are going to sign a highly detailed, legally binding commission contract. We are going to appraise the piece. And once I carve that finger, it ceases to be a tree. It becomes federally protected visual art." The sheer brilliance of the trap is blinding. It's a legal nuke. We aren't just fighting the HOA rules. We are changing the entire battlefield from local property bylaws to federal intellectual property law. "Bear," I whisper, genuinely in awe. "You are a genius." "I know," Bear says, flipping his sketchbook around to show me the finished sketch. It is breathtaking. The shading, the detail, the sheer defiance radiating from the graphite rendering of the juniper tree. It's beautiful. "We start tonight," Bear says, draining the rest of his coffee. "We have to do the prep work under the cover of darkness. If Richard sees us setting up the rigging, he might try to get a preemptive injunction. We build a perimeter. We put up tarps. We make it look like a standard, boring, tree-trimming tent. By the time the tarps come down, the art will be complete." We spend the next hour drafting the contract on a piece of notebook paper. I officially commission Bear to create an artwork titled Ode to the Overreach. I agree to pay him his standard day rate, plus a bonus for hazard pay, considering we are operating in hostile HOA territory. We sign the papers. We shake on it. That night, at exactly 1 a.m., a matte black, heavy-duty pickup truck rolls up to my curb with its headlights turned off. I'm waiting in the driveway, dressed in dark clothes, feeling like I'm in the middle of a covert ops mission. Bear hops out of the truck, moving with shocking silence for a man of his size. He goes to the back and drops the tailgate. "Let's move," he whispers. For the next 3 hours, we work like ghosts. We haul heavy steel scaffolding poles out of the truck bed, carrying them across my front lawn, taking extreme care not to snap a single twig or crunch too loudly on the gravel. We erect a 3-story cage around the massive juniper tree closest to Richard's property line. Every time a dog barks in the distance, we freeze. Every time the wind rustles the leaves, my heart leaps into my throat, terrified that Richard is going to step out onto his balcony with a flashlight and ruin everything. But the neighborhood stays dark. The millionaires are fast asleep. By 4 a.m., the scaffolding is up. Bear pulls out massive, heavy-duty black construction tarps. We drape them over the entire structure, tying them down with zip ties and bungee cords. When we are finished, the tree is completely hidden from view. It just looks like a giant, black monolith standing in my front yard. Bear steps back, wiping sweat from his forehead. He looks at the black obelisk. He reaches into his truck and pulls out a massive set of gas-powered hedge trimmers. "Tomorrow," Bear whispers, revving the trimmers once just to hear the engine purr. We make history. I look up at the dark, silent balcony of Richard's glass house. I imagine him sleeping soundly up there, dreaming of pristine lawns and compliant neighbors, completely unaware of the absolute masterpiece of malicious compliance that is currently gestating right next door. I can barely contain my excitement. The countdown has started. The next 48 hours are, honestly, just an absolute blur of gasoline fumes, flying greenery, and the terrifying, exhilarating realization that I am entirely committed to this bit. I mean, there is no turning back now. When you erect a 3-story, blacked-out monolith of scaffolding in the middle of a high-end Sedona subdivision, people notice. By Saturday afternoon, the neighborhood rumor mill is literally operating at maximum capacity. I've got neighbors walking their golden doodles at an aggressively slow pace past my driveway, just staring at the tarps. One lady, I think her name is Brenda, she's really into aura cleansing, actually stops and asks if I'm building a sensory deprivation chamber. I just nod, smile, and tell her I'm realigning my property's root chakra. She eats it up, obviously. But inside the tarps? Inside the tarps, it is a masterclass in chaotic, high-stakes arbor sculpture. Bear is a madman. I guess I thought he'd just eyeball it, maybe make a couple of rough cuts and call it a day. But no. He treats this juniper tree like it's a block of pristine Carrara marble, and he's Michelangelo with a hangover. He's got calipers. He's got plumb lines hanging from the scaffolding. He's literally out there in a tank top, covered in a thick layer of green sawdust and sweat, muttering to himself about proportions and negative space. The noise is incredible. He alternates between the roaring, gas-powered hedge trimmers for the bulk work and these tiny surgical hand shears for the detail. The smell of cut juniper is so strong it practically burns the inside of my nose. For 2 days, I am just on edge, pacing my living room, peeking out the blinds, waiting for Richard to come storming over to demand I take the tarps down. But Richard, in all his arrogant glory, just assumes I've hired a crew to chop the tree down to a boring, compliant 15-foot sphere. He actually waves at me on Saturday evening from his driveway, like a smug, victorious little wave. I literally have to bite my own tongue to keep from laughing. Enjoy the victory lap, Richard. It's your last one. Sunday morning arrives. The deadline. The sun comes up over the red rocks, painting the whole valley in this gorgeous, glowing, fiery orange light. It is a perfect, pristine Arizona morning. The birds are singing. The air is crisp, and Bear is standing in my driveway, chugging his third iced coffee of the morning, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. "It's done," he rumbles. His eyes are bloodshot, but there's this wild, triumphant gleam in them. "Are you sure?" I ask, my stomach doing backflips. "Jack," he says, staring me dead in the eye. "I gave it a knuckle wrinkle. I am honestly considering entering it into a contemporary art exhibition in Phoenix. It is my magnum opus. Drop the tarps." We climb up the scaffolding. My hands are actually shaking as I grab the first zip tie. I snip it, then the next, and the next. We work our way down, pulling the heavy black plastic away, letting it fall to the gravel below. When the last tarp drops, I step back. I walk backward all the way down my driveway, crossing the street, just to get the full, unobstructed view. I literally stop breathing for a second. It is magnificent. It is horrifying. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my entire life. Bear didn't just trim a tree into a vague hand shape. He sculpted an anatomically perfect, deeply aggressive 15-foot-tall human hand, giving the middle finger. The base of the tree is trimmed tight, forming a thick, sturdy wrist. The outer branches are expertly rounded into knuckles. The index, ring, and pinky fingers are folded down, tightly curled into a dense green fist. And rocketing out of the center, standing exactly, mathematically, undeniably 15 feet from the ground, is the middle finger. It is pointing, with laser precision, directly at Richard's second-floor master suite balcony. "Bear," I whisper, completely awestruck. "You're a terrifying genius." "I know," Bear grunts, packing his shears into his truck. "I'll send you the final invoice. Call me when the lawyers show up." He fires up his truck and rumbles out of the neighborhood, leaving me alone with my botanical masterpiece. I check my watch, 8:15 a.m. Like clockwork, this is when Richard takes his morning tea on the balcony. I grab a folding lawn chair from my garage, set it up right in the middle of my driveway, sit down, and wait. I guess I don't even have to wait long. At 8:17 a.m., the sliding glass door on the second floor of the glass fortress slides open. Out steps Richard. He is wearing a plush, seafoam green bathrobe. He has his little golf visor on. Yes, he wears it with the bathrobe. Don't ask me why. The man is a sociopath. And in his hand, he is holding a steaming, stainless steel mug of what I know for a fact is an organic matcha latte. He steps up to the glass railing. He takes a deep breath of the morning air. He closes his eyes, probably thanking the universe for making him so incredibly wealthy and important. Then, he opens his eyes. He looks to his left to take in his precious, unobstructed, scenic red rock vista. Instead, he comes face to face with 15 feet of densely packed, expertly manicured, aggressive green foliage telling him to go screw himself. It happens in slow motion. I am literally watching his brain short-circuit. He freezes. His eyes go wide. His mouth drops open. The stainless steel mug slips from his perfectly manicured fingers. It hits the glass balcony floor, shattering the lid and sending hot green matcha splattering all over his pristine white outdoor rug. He doesn't even look at the spill. He just grips the glass railing, his knuckles turning white, his face cycling rapidly through confusion, shock, and finally a shade of purple that I didn't know a human being could naturally produce. "Jack!" The scream tears through the quiet Sunday morning like a jet engine. Several birds flee from a nearby cactus. I just lean back in my lawn chair, interlace my fingers behind my head, and smile. "Morning, Richard. Beautiful day for a vista, isn't it?" "What is that?" he bellows, his voice cracking violently. He is pointing a trembling, accusatory finger at the tree. "What have you done to your property?" "I complied with the CC&R, Richard," I call back, my voice dripping with weaponized cheerfulness. Section 4, Paragraph B. The offending landscaping has been reduced to a maximum height of 15 feet. Honestly, I think it really frames the canyon nicely. "That is an obscenity!" Richard shrieks, literally stomping his foot on his balcony. "That is a public nuisance! I am calling the authorities! I am calling the police! You are going to jail, Jack!" He spins around, his sea-foam robe billowing behind him like a discount Batman cape, and storms back into his house, slamming the sliding glass door so hard I'm surprised it doesn't shatter. I guess I have about 10 minutes. I go inside, grab my tape measure, a copy of the HOA bylaws, and a fresh cup of coffee, and head back out to the driveway. Exactly 12 minutes later, the blue and red lights come flashing around the corner. A Sedona Police Department SUV rolls up slowly, crunching to a halt right in front of my driveway. 2 officers get out. They look exhausted. They have that specific world-weary look of cops who spend 90% of their time mediating disputes over off-leash labradoodles and noise complaints about wind chimes. The first officer, a tall guy with a thick mustache, his name tag says Miller, adjusts his belt and sighs. "Morning, sir. We got a 911 call from a Mr. Richard." He checks his notepad. Saying his neighbor is, quote, threatening him with an obscene biological weapon. Before I can even answer, Richard's front door violently swings open. He is fully dressed now, khaki shorts, a polo shirt tucked in with military precision, and, of course, the visor. He comes sprinting across his perfectly manicured lawn, his face still that alarming shade of eggplant. "Officers!" Richard gasps, pointing frantically. "Arrest him! Arrest him right now! Look at it!" Officer Miller and his partner, Officer Davis, slowly turn their heads and look up. They look at the tree. They look at the knuckles. They look at the cuticle. They look at the massive 15-foot finger pointing proudly at Richard's house. There is absolute dead silence for about 5 seconds. Then, I literally watch Officer Davis bite the inside of his cheek so hard he winces. He turns his head away, coughing aggressively into his fist. Officer Miller's mustache twitches. He looks down at his boots, takes a deep breath, and looks back up at Richard. "Sir," Miller says, his voice strained with the sheer, agonizing effort of keeping a straight face. "It's a bush." "It is a middle finger," Richard screams, his voice reaching a pitch that only dogs and HOA board members can hear. "It is a deliberate, malicious, obscene gesture aimed directly at my property. It violates every standard of decency in Red Rock Estates." Okay, let's calm down," Miller says, holding up a hand. He turns to me. "Sir, did you trim your tree to look like this?" "Officer," I say, stepping forward with my coffee mug, adopting my most innocent, conversational tone. "I am simply complying with the binding regulations of my homeowners association. You see, Richard here, acting in his capacity as HOA president, ordered me to reduce the height of my juniper tree to exactly 15 feet. I hold up the tape measure. Would you like to measure it?" I assure you, it is precisely 15 feet from ground level to the tip of the highest branch. Officer Davis lets out a noise that sounds suspiciously like a snort, then quickly turns it into a cough again. It doesn't matter how tall it is, Richard yells, stepping dangerously close to me. It's the shape. You can't have a giant profane hand in your front yard. Actually, I say, turning to the officers, I read the community guidelines very carefully. There is no ordinance regarding the shape of a homeowner's flora, only the height. He's terrorizing me, Richard yells to the cops. Make him cut it down. Officer Miller sighs again. He hooks his thumbs into his duty belt and looks at Richard with the exhausted patience of a kindergarten teacher. Sir, look, it's not illegal to have a weird-looking tree. It's on his property. It's not blocking the roadway. It's not a public safety hazard. Unless this tree suddenly unspools its roots and starts physically assaulting you, there is absolutely zero criminal activity happening here. But it's obscene, Richard insists, practically vibrating with rage. It's a plant, sir, Officer Davis finally says, wiping a tear from his eye. Honestly, if you look at it from the right angle, it kind of just looks like a very tall cactus. A cactus? Richard splutters. It has knuckles. Sir, Miller says, his tone firming up. This is a civil matter. It's between you, him, and your HOA board. Do not call 911 for landscaping disputes again, or I will cite you for misuse of emergency services. Have a good morning. Richard is literally speechless. His mouth opens and closes like a stranded fish. He glares at me with a hatred so pure and concentrated it could probably melt steel, then spins around and power walks back to his house, muttering furiously under his breath. The cops watch him go. Once Richard's front door clicks shut, the professional facade completely shatters. Officer Davis doubles over, resting his hands on his knees, his shoulders shaking with silent laughter. Officer Miller just stares at the tree, shaking his head in absolute disbelief. I've been on the force for 12 years, Miller wheezes, pointing at the juniper. I have never, literally never, seen a level of neighborhood pettiness quite like this. You actually paid someone to do this? I commissioned an artist, I correct him smoothly. It's a site-specific installation. Davis stands up, wiping his face. He pulls his personal cell phone out of his pocket. Hey man, my brother-in-law is dealing with an HOA nightmare over in Scottsdale right now. Do you mind if I... Go right ahead, I say, gesturing to the tree. Both cops walk over to the edge of my driveway. They turn their backs to the giant green middle finger, hold up the phone, and snap a selfie. Legendary, Miller says, putting his sunglasses back on. Good luck with the fallout, buddy. He's going to bring a war to your doorstep. Oh, I know, I say, sipping my coffee. I'm counting on it. They get back in their cruiser and drive off, tapping the siren once as they turn the corner. I stand in my driveway, the sun warming my face, staring up at the magnificent, defiant monument I have brought into this world. I know the cops are right. Richard isn't going to let this go. He can't. His entire ego is wrapped up in his ability to control this neighborhood. He is going to comb through the bylaws, he is going to rally the board, and he is going to throw every legal and financial weapon he has at me. But I mean, that's exactly what I want. They think they hold all the cards. They think they have the ultimate authority just because they printed some rules on fancy paper. But they are about to learn the hard way that when you push someone into a corner with hyper-specific regulations, you better be prepared for them to use those exact same regulations to completely dismantle you. Anyway, let the games begin. Honestly, the next 3 days are like living in a surrealist sitcom. By Monday morning, the retaliation begins. And I mean, it is swift, and it is entirely paper-based. I walk out to my mailbox, which, by the way, is a standard, unpretentious black metal box, not a brushed steel monument to vanity like Richard's. And there it is. A thick, cream-colored, heavily embossed envelope. I don't even have to open it to know what it is, but I guess I enjoy the theater of it. Take it inside, slice it open with a kitchen knife, and pull out the formal decree. Notice of immediate and ongoing violation. Fine assessed. $500. The letter goes on for 3 pages. It's a masterpiece of passive-aggressive legalese, citing clauses I'm pretty sure they literally made up that morning. Malicious horticulture, intentional degradation of property values, blatant disregard for community aesthetic standards. It demands the immediate eradication of the obscene topiary structure. I just laugh, fold it into a paper airplane, and toss it onto my kitchen island. Tuesday, another envelope. Another $500. We are up to $1,000 in fines. Wednesday, a third envelope, $1,500. They're sliding these things into my mailbox via certified courier now, which means Richard is actually spending HOA funds to professionally deliver his temper tantrums. But the fines are honestly the least interesting part of the week. The real entertainment is the neighborhood dynamics. You see, Red Rock Estates is a community built on a fragile ecosystem of fake smiles and underlying resentment. Everyone hates the HOA, but nobody wants to be the one to stick their neck out. Until now. My front yard has literally become a monument to suburban rebellion. I start noticing the traffic on our normally quiet cul-de-sac has tripled. It's not obvious at first. Just a sleek Tesla driving by a little too slowly. A golf cart lingering at the stop sign. But by Wednesday afternoon, it's a full-on parade. People are doing loop-de-loops around the neighborhood just to drive past the 15-foot middle finger. I'm sitting in my home office by the front window, and I literally watch a guy in a Porsche SUV slow down to a crawl, roll down his tinted window, pull out his phone, and take a picture while giggling like a schoolgirl. And the quiet support? I mean, it's kind of touching, honestly. Tuesday evening, the doorbell rings. I open it, and nobody is there. But sitting on my welcome mat is a Tupperware container filled with warm banana nut muffins and a sticky note that just says, Vive la résistance. Wednesday morning, Brenda, the aura-cleansing lady from down the street, actually catches me while I'm watering the lawn. She doesn't come onto the grass, obviously, because that would imply she's taking a side, but she leans over the curb. Jack, she whispers, looking around nervously like she's buying contraband. I just wanted to say, the energy of your tree? It's very assertive. It's really blocking Richard's toxic output. My healer says you've created a protective botanical ward. Thanks, Brenda, I say, trying not to smile. That's exactly what I was going for. A botanical ward. But while the neighborhood is low-key loving it, Richard is spiraling. I catch glimpses of him pacing in his glass house. He's always on his phone, gesturing wildly. He hasn't come outside to enjoy his scenic vista since Sunday morning. The finger is constantly there, looming just over his property line, greeting him every time he looks out a window. It's psychological warfare, and I am winning without lifting a finger. Pun entirely intended. But I know Richard. I know the type of man who measures grass. They don't just write letters. When the paper trail fails, they escalate. Which brings us to Thursday. It's about 10:30 in the morning. Normally, I'd be at the office, but my company let me shift to remote work for the week, which is lucky, because I had this sinking feeling that leaving the property unguarded was a terrible idea. My car is parked inside my closed garage, so from the outside, the house looks completely empty. I'm in the kitchen, making my second cup of coffee, when my phone buzzes. It's a notification from my front porch security camera. Motion detected. I pull up the live feed, pulling up to the curb right in front of the giant green finger, is a beat-up, rusted-out mid-90s Ford F250. The truck has no logo, no company name, not even a phone number painted on the side. The bed of the truck is filled with tangled ropes, empty Mountain Dew bottles, and what looks like a very large, very yellow, gas-powered chainsaw. My blood instantly runs cold. Two guys get out of the truck. They do not look like licensed, bonded arborists. One guy is wearing a dirty baseball cap backwards, smoking a cigarette, and wearing work boots that look like they've survived 3 different world wars. The other guy is younger, looking incredibly bored, chewing on a toothpick. And then marching down his pristine driveway like a general overseeing an invasion comes Richard. He's wearing his golf visor, naturally. He marches right up to the two guys, points a trembling finger at my beautiful, legally compliant, artistically commissioned topiary, and starts barking orders. I can't hear what he's saying through the camera feed, but the body language is obvious. Cut that thing down to the roots. The guy with the backwards cap takes a drag of his cigarette, shrugs, and reaches into the bed of the truck. He pulls out the massive yellow chainsaw. He yanks the pull cord. Even through the thick, double-paned glass of my kitchen window, I can hear the violent, sputtering roar of the 2-stroke engine coming to life. Oh, hell no. I drop my coffee mug in the sink. I don't even grab my shoes. I am literally out the front door in my socks, sprinting across my front lawn like an absolute lunatic. "Hey!" I scream, my voice cracking from the adrenaline. "Hey! Shut that off! Shut it off right now!" The 3 of them freeze. Richard whips his head around, his eyes going wide with panic. He obviously thought I was at work. The guy with the chainsaw pauses, the blade hovering maybe 2 feet away from the thickest part of the juniper's trunk. "Keep going!" Richard shrieks, his voice pitching up into that frantic dog whistle territory. "Cut it down! The HOA authorizes it! It's a safety hazard! Cut it!" I don't even think. I guess my survival instincts are entirely broken, because I literally throw my body between the revving chainsaw and the tree trunk. I plant my feet, cross my arms, and stare dead at the contractor. "You touch this shrub," I growl, breathing heavily, "and I will sue you so hard your grandchildren will be born with subpoenas." The contractor blinks. He looks at me, a guy standing in his socks on gravel, willing to take a chainsaw blade for a bush. He slowly takes his finger off the throttle. The roar of the chainsaw idles down to a sputtering put. "Look, man," the contractor says, his voice raspy. "The guy over there said he's the HOA president. Said this tree is in violation and we got the green light to take it down. I'm just here for the $200. "He lied to you," I say, my voice steady, though my heart is beating so fast I can hear it in my teeth. "This tree is on my private property. There is no court order. There is no municipal warrant. If you touch that blade to this bark, you are committing criminal trespassing and destruction of private property. And I promise you, buddy, I have cameras recording every single second of this." I point up at the blinking red light under my porch roof. The contractor looks at the camera. He looks at Richard. He looks back at me. He hits the kill switch on the chainsaw. The engine dies with a pathetic wheeze. "What are you doing?" Richard bellows. He is literally stomping his feet on the edge of my driveway. "I hired you. I am the president of the Red Rock Estates Homeowners Association. I have the authority to remedy community violations." I step away from the tree and walk slowly toward Richard, stopping exactly 1 inch from the invisible property line that separates his driveway from mine. "Richard," I say, keeping my voice dangerously low. "You have the authority to send me strongly worded letters. You have the authority to fine me. What you do not have the authority to do is hire 2 random guys off Craigslist to sneak onto my property and destroy a federally protected work of art while you think I'm not home." "Art?" Richard spits the word like it's poison. It's a bush shaped like a profanity, Jack. It's an eyesore. It is dropping property values by the minute. I will not allow my neighborhood to be turned into a trailer park. It is exactly 15 feet tall, Richard, I say, a cold smile creeping onto my face. Just like you asked. You think you're so smart, Richard snarls, his face so red it's practically glowing. You think you found a cute little loophole. Well, let me tell you something. I have the entire HOA board behind me. We have to have a legal fund of over $80,000. We will bleed you dry, Jack. We will fine you until you have to sell this dump, and then we'll tear the tree down ourselves. You can try, I say casually, crossing my arms. But I'm telling you right now, if you or anyone else steps foot on my property with a landscaping tool, I'm calling the police. And this time, I'm not letting them just take a selfie. I'm pressing charges. I turn to the two contractors, who are awkwardly standing there, clearly realizing they have wandered into a war zone way above their pay grade. Guys, I say, softening my tone, I don't blame you. But you really, really need to leave. He doesn't have the legal right to authorize this. You're going to catch a felony for a $200 job. The main guy with the backwards cap spits his cigarette onto Richard's driveway. He looks at Richard with utter disgust. Man, you said this was a cleared job, the contractor says. I ain't getting involved in some rich people's suburban lawsuit crap. Come on, Tyler, load it up. Wait, Richard cries out, pulling his wallet from his khakis. I'll double it. 400. Just cut the trunk. Not for 1,000, pal, the guy says, tossing the massive chainsaw into the bed of the rusted truck with a loud metallic clang. You guys are crazy. The two of them hop into the truck. The engine turns over with a horrible grinding noise, and they speed off down the street, leaving a small cloud of black exhaust floating over Richard's immaculate lawn. It is just me and Richard now. He is standing on his driveway, clutching his wallet, breathing heavily. He looks completely unhinged. The perfectly manicured veneer of the wealthy HOA president is gone. He is just a petty, furious little man staring down a giant green finger that he cannot control. This isn't over, Richard whispers, his voice shaking with absolute rage. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. We are filing an injunction. I am going to get a court order, Jack. I am going to bring the law down on you, and a judge is going to force you to chop that obscenity into firewood. I look forward to it, Richard, I say cheerfully. Make sure you send the summons on that nice, thick cardstock. It really makes me feel special. I turn around and walk back to my house, my socks completely ruined by the gravel. I step inside, lock the door behind me, and lean against it, letting out a massive breath. My legs are actually shaking. That was way too close. If I had been at the office, if I hadn't checked my camera, the masterpiece would be gone. Richard is escalating faster than I anticipated. He's desperate. He's bypassed the standard protocol because he knows the standard protocol takes months, and his ego can't survive looking at that tree for months. He wants a legal battle. He wants to drag me into a room with his expensive lawyers and crush me with the weight of the HOA's bylaws. He thinks he has the ultimate trump card because he has a war chest of neighborhood funds to spend on legal fees. But I mean, he doesn't know about the trap. He doesn't know about Bear's credentials. He doesn't know that by trying to force a court order, he is walking blindly into a federal intellectual property landmine. I walk back into the kitchen, pick up my cold coffee, and dump it into the sink. I need something stronger. I grab a bottle of water, sit down at the kitchen island, and look at the stack of $500 fines. Two can play at this game. I pull out my phone and dial the number from the bright yellow flyer. Bear, I say when he answers. Jack, the arborist rumbles on the other end. I assume the fines have started rolling in? Oh, we're way past fines. I say. Richard just tried to order a hit on the tree. Discount guys with a chainsaw. I had to physically block them. There is a long pause on the line. I can hear the sound of wind and traffic in the background. Bear must be on a job. Is the piece unharmed? Bear asks, his tone suddenly incredibly serious. He is fully adopting the persona of the outraged artist. The piece is fully intact, I assure him. But Richard is calling an emergency board meeting. He says he's getting a court order to force me to destroy it. Excellent, Bear says, a low chuckle vibrating through the phone. This is exactly what we wanted. Have they scheduled the hearing? Not yet, but I'm sure it'll be within the next 48 hours. They're going to try and ambush me. They'll have their community lawyers there to intimidate me into a settlement. Don't worry about the lawyers, Bear says smoothly. I've got the appraisal document finalized. I had a buddy at an art gallery in Scottsdale authenticate this. The portfolio value. Ode to the Overreach is officially appraised at $35,000 as a site-specific kinetic installation. Plus, I have my MFA transcripts printed out and notarized. I literally grin so hard my face hurts. You got it appraised for 35 grand? Art is subjective, Jack, Bear replies effortlessly. And my time is valuable. Text me the time and place of the meeting as soon as you get the summons. I'll wear a tie. You own a tie? I'm an artist, Jack. I own several. I'll see you on the battlefield. He hangs up. I set the phone down. The trap is set. The bait has been taken. Richard thinks he's dragging a stubborn homeowner into a slaughterhouse, but he's actually stepping into a federal snare that is going to snap his tyrannical little HOA in half. I look out the window one more time. The sun is hitting the 15-foot finger perfectly, casting a long, dark, beautiful shadow directly across Richard's pristine driveway. Honestly, it really is a masterpiece.